So, I need to get this off my chest because I'm still processing what happened. And honestly, I'm still shaking. I'm Willow, 27, and what was supposed to be just another Friday night out turned into the most insane night of my life that somehow ended with me in the ER and my boyfriend of 2 years completely ghosting me. And the craziest part, everyone's acting like I'm the villain here when I was just trying to advance my career. It started when my girls and I hit up this new club downtown. Amber kept saying we needed to network since the place attracts industry people, and yeah, I was down for that because unlike my boyfriend Nate, I actually care about climbing the ladder. God, Nate is so broken. He's been at the same dead end job for 3 years and gets all weird and defensive whenever I suggest he should aim higher. Meanwhile, I'm hustling every day trying to make connections that could actually get us out of our crappy apartment. We'd been at the club maybe an hour when people started whispering, "This famous rapper, I'm not dropping names, but trust me, everyone knows him, walks in with his entourage and gets this VIP section roped off." Amber nearly spilled her drink on me from excitement. Even Kenzie, who acts all above celebrity culture, couldn't stop staring. I casually suggested we dance closer to his section, you know, just to get the vibe going. Poor little Nate was standing there looking all uncomfortable like he always does in social situations where he's not the center of my attention. I swear he's got the social skills of a houseplant. He was doing that thing where he checks his watch every 5 minutes like he's got somewhere important to be. The girls and I started dancing. And yeah, maybe we were being a little extra, but that's literally how you get noticed in this industry. You think successful people sit in corners nursing one drink all night? When this guy in a tight black shirt, clearly security, came over, my heart literally stopped. He leaned in close to be heard over the music and said the rapper wanted us to join their table. Then he looked at Nate and the other guys we were with and straight up said, "Ladies only." I'm not gonna lie, it felt amazing to be picked out of the crowd like that. Like validation that I'm not just wasting my life like Nate always implies with his little judgmental looks. I thought Nate would make a scene. He's always so possessive over the stupidest things. But he just stood there with this pathetic look on his face. I told him I just wanted to get a selfie for my profile, maybe hand out a few business cards. Networking, right? He said, "I'm cool with it." In that tone, that means he's absolutely not cool with it, but doesn't have the spine to say what he actually thinks. That's Nate's whole problem in life. No spine, no drive, no vision. The VIP section was everything you'd imagine: bottle service, these incredible leather couches, people who actually matter in the world. I was texting Nate updates like just talking to people, and might be a while, but honestly, I was barely thinking about him. For once, I was around people with actual ambition, not someone who thinks getting a 3% raise at his joke of a job is something to celebrate. When they invited us to an after party, Amber and Kenzie were all in immediately. I hesitated for like 2 seconds, thinking about how Nate would sulk for days. But then, this woman who introduced herself as the rapper's brand manager started talking about influencer collaborations. Do you know what kind of doors that could open for me? What was I supposed to do? Run back to Nate so we could go home and watch whatever lame show he's obsessed with this month. I texted him that we were going to another venue for a networking opportunity. He responded with some guilt trip about wanting to go home, and I almost gave in like I usually do. But then I looked around at where I was and who I was with, and I thought, why am I always catering to his comfort zone? When does my career get to come first? So, I told him I'd text him updates, and he should just go home without me. The girls were calling me over to the exit where a line of black SUVs was waiting, and I felt this surge of excitement. Like maybe this was the night everything would change for me. Little did I know how right I was, just not in the way I was hoping. The SUVs were nicer than anything Nate could ever afford: real leather seats and champagne already poured. I snapped a quick pic for my story without showing too much so Nate wouldn't freak out. The driver took us to this hotel downtown, one of those places where rooms cost more per night than our monthly rent. As we pulled up, I sent Nate another text. Just networking with some industry people. Might be late. He replied immediately with some whiny message about how he was worried. Classic Nate, always trying to make me feel guilty for having a career. Inside the suite was massive, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city and people who actually matter in the entertainment world mingling everywhere. I recognized a few faces from magazines and social media. This rapper's friend, let's call him Jay, started talking to me about my personal brand. He actually got what I've been trying to build, while Nate just calls it showing off online. Jay asked for my handle and followed me right there. That's an instant 20K followers for me. Try telling me that's not a career move. I texted Nate a few glamour shots of the view, careful not to include any people. Making connections. So many opportunities, I wrote. He responded asking when I'd be home. God, he's suffocating sometimes. I switched my phone to silent and put it in my purse. For once, I wanted to enjoy being around successful people without his negativity dragging me down. The alcohol was flowing. Not cheap beer like Nate brings home, but premium stuff I couldn't even pronounce. Jay kept refilling my glass, saying things like, "You've got the look we're searching for in our next campaign." My heartbeat quickened every time he mentioned collaboration possibilities. This was exactly the break I'd been hustling for, while Nate tells me to be realistic about my goals. Around midnight, I remembered I should check my phone. Nate had sent like 7 texts, each more pathetic than the last. "Are you okay? Please let me know you're safe. Who are you with right now?" I rolled my eyes and sent back a quick stop, worrying. Networking with female influencers, too. Big opportunities, complete with the businesswoman emoji. That should keep him quiet. Honestly, it felt good having Nate worry about me for once, instead of me constantly propping up his fragile ego. Do you know how exhausting it is dating someone who needs constant reassurance that they're enough? Meanwhile, here was Jay actually seeing my potential right away. I caught him watching me from across the room several times, and unlike Nate's nervous puppy dog stares, Jay's gaze made me feel powerful, desired. "Your boyfriend cool with you being out tonight?" Jay asked suddenly beside me on the couch. I gave him my practice laugh, the one I use when clients ask personal questions. "He's supportive of my career," I lied smoothly. "He understands networking is part of the industry." In reality, Nate had once accused me of acting different around successful men after a work event, like it's my fault he can't hold an intelligent conversation about anything beyond his boring job. Jay nodded like he'd heard this 1,000 times. Supportive from a distance, right? That's smart. Most guys can't handle seeing their girls shine. Fragile egos and all that. It was like he could read my mind, and for a second, I wondered if I'd been talking about Nate out loud without realizing. But no, Jay just understood the dynamic because he'd seen it before. Successful men recognize other successful people. I noticed Amber across the room giving me that wide-eyed, "What's happening?" look. I excused myself to use the restroom, and she followed me. "Girl, are you serious right now?" she whispered, shouted once we were alone. "That's Jay Kingston. He produces for everyone." She gripped my arm. "But be careful. Kenzie says they're all recording everything on their phones." I rolled my eyes. "For what?" "I'm not doing anything wrong, but I checked my makeup anyway, reapplied my lipstick. Nate's blowing up my phone like I'm cheating or something. We're just talking." Amber gave me that look. The one she started giving me after I told her about Nate's depression episode when I went to Miami for a conference. "Just remember what happened with Ryan," she said quietly. "That was different," I snapped. "Ryan was a mistake from before Nate. One I'd confided in Amber about during a drunk girls' night. I'm not that person anymore. This is professional." When we returned, the vibe had shifted. The music was lower, the lights dimmer, and people had broken into smaller groups. Jay waved me over to a sectioned off area where the rapper and 3 other guys were lounging. My heart raced. This was it. My moment to make real connections. "This is the marketing genius I was telling you about," Jay said, his hand resting casually on my lower back as he introduced me. The rapper barely looked up from his phone, but nodded. Still, being acknowledged by someone of his status sent electricity through me. I glanced at my own phone. 1:30 a.m. and 5 more messages from Nate. I turned it face down. He was probably in bed anyway, doing that passive-aggressive sighing thing does when I'm out late. Meanwhile, I was in a room most people would kill to access, talking to people who could change my entire career trajectory. So, what exactly do you do? Asked another guy from their crew. Unlike Jay's smooth approach, his gaze was more direct, assessing. Digital marketing and brand development, I answered confidently, launching into my rehearsed pitch about engagement metrics and audience building. But really, I don't be doing that, I lied. Jay handed me another drink, something pink and strong. As the conversation flowed, they were actually listening to my ideas, not cutting me off or looking bored like Nate does. When Jay suggested moving to a quieter space to discuss potential collaborations, it seemed perfectly reasonable, professional even. Just tell the girls you're in a meeting, he said when I mentioned letting my friends know. They'll understand. I texted Amber, talking business with Jay's team. Don't wait up if you guys leave. Then, feeling a twinge of something, not guilt, just awareness, I sent Nate a final message. Still networking. Might crash at Amber's since it's getting late. Don't wait up. Jay led me down a hallway to another suite. I remember thinking how this could be the night that launched everything I'd been working toward, how Nate would finally see that my social climbing, as he called it, wasn't just vanity but strategy. How maybe now he'd understand why I pushed him to aim higher, too. If only I'd known what collaboration really meant to them. The second suite was smaller but even more luxurious. Dark mood lighting, another bar setup, and a bedroom visible through partially open double doors. My marketing brain registered the designer furniture, the carefully curated artwork that screamed wealth. The other guy from earlier, Marcus, I learned, appeared and closed the door behind us. So, Willow, Jay said, settling onto a couch and patting the space beside him, let's talk about what you bring to the table. Looking back, I should have recognized the shift in tone, how the professional pretense was thinning. But after 4 drinks and the intoxication of being chosen, being special, I wasn't thinking clearly. Or maybe I was thinking perfectly clearly, just not about Nate. I've got a growing following, I started, pulling up my profile on my phone. Jay took it from my hand, scrolled briefly, then set it on the coffee table face down. Impressive, he said, though he'd barely looked. But we're more interested in your personal brand development. Marcus laughed at that, pouring amber liquid into 3 glasses. Personal brand? That's good. I accepted the drink, trying to maintain my professional composure while fighting the uneasy feeling creeping up my spine. I specialize in authentic engagement strategies. You're hot, Marcus interrupted bluntly. That's your strategy, right? Being hot. Before I could process my reaction, Jay smoothly cut in. What my associate means is that physical presentation is part of brand identity, something you clearly understand. His hand landed on my knee. The question is how far you're willing to go to make the right connections. In that moment, the fantasy I'd been building all night, of business cards exchanged, of legitimate opportunities, of proving Nate wrong, cracked. But instead of leaving, I heard myself laugh, a practiced sound I use when clients make inappropriate comments. But I still need the account. Depends on the connection, I said, taking a large sip of my drink. I wasn't stupid. I knew exactly what was happening. But the alternative was returning to Nate, admitting he was right, crawling back to our mediocre life, where I was the ambitious one, always hitting glass ceilings while he seemed content at rock bottom. Let's see if we vibe first, Jay said, his mouth suddenly close to my ear. Business is about chemistry, right? His hand slid higher on my thigh, and I didn't stop him. Not because I was too drunk or scared, though. That's the version I'd tell later. I didn't stop him because part of me wanted to cross this line, to do something that would shock Nate if he knew, to feel desired by someone successful, when Nate's idea of romance was takeout and streaming shows in our underwear. What happened next is both blurry and sharply clear in my memory. Kisses that tasted like expensive liquor, hands more confident than Nate's ever were, the bedroom with its ridiculous king-sized bed, Marcus joining us, something I'd never even considered before. Their casual discussion about what they wanted to do as if I wasn't there, or as if my agreement was assumed. And honestly, at that point, they weren't wrong. Ever done backdoor? Marcus asked, his voice clinical despite the crude question. I shook my head, feeling a strange mix of nervousness and defiance. This was so far from my quiet life with Nate, from his careful, almost timid lovemaking. There was something darkly thrilling about being desired this way, wanted for nothing but my body by men who could have anyone. She's too tight for both, Jay commented to Marcus like they were discussing a technical problem. We'll go one at a time, Marcus replied, reaching for something in the nightstand. Part of me wanted to leave, to run back to safe, predictable Nate. But another part, the part tired of being the responsible one, of always compromising my dreams, of settling for less, whispered, "Why not? Nate would never know. And even if he somehow found out, wasn't this just proving what I'd always suspected? That I was meant for more excitement than he could provide?" I won't describe exactly what happened next. It's too private, too raw. But I remember the pain starting suddenly, sharp and wrong. I remember gasping, then crying out. I remember blood on the sheets and the men's irritated voices rather than concern. I remember fumbling for my clothes while they argued about whose fault it was. "Call your friends," Jay said, suddenly businesslike, handing me my phone. "We need you out of here." The fantasy of opportunity had vanished, replaced by the sterile reality of a hookup gone wrong. I called Amber, my voice shaking as I tried to explain where I was without saying what had happened. The pain was getting worse, a tearing sensation that made it hard to walk. While waiting for her, Jay handed me a non-disclosure agreement on his phone, barely looking at me as I signed it with my finger. "Medical bills covered, but this stays quiet," he said. "You agreed to everything. Remember that." When Amber and Kenzie arrived, their faces shifting from excitement to horror as they saw me, the full weight of what I'd done began to sink in, not just the physical consequences, but what it meant for me and Nate. As they helped me to their car, I started constructing the story I would tell, one where I was less active participant, more innocent bystander, one where my choices weren't choices at all. The hospital waiting room lights were harsh after the dim hotel suite. Pain radiated through me as I sat hunched in a plastic chair while Amber handled the paperwork. Kenzie kept asking what happened, her voice pitched low, but I couldn't form the words, not the true ones. "Should we call Nate?" Kenzie asked gently. "No." The word came out sharper than I intended. "I mean, not yet. Let's see what the doctor says first." What would I even tell him? "Sorry I cheated on you while mocking your existence to impress industry men who just wanted to use me. Sorry, I'm sitting in an emergency room at 3 a.m. because I let them do things to me I never let you do." The nurse called my name, and as I struggled to stand, Amber made an executive decision. "I'm calling him," she said firmly. "This is serious, Willow. You need him here." Panic flooded me. "Amber, don't." But she was already walking away, phone in hand. I heard her voice break as she spoke, though I couldn't make out the words. The nurse led me to an examination room and the clinical questions began. Age, medical history, what happened? My voice failed. How could I explain this to a stranger when I couldn't explain it to myself? "It was consensual," I finally said. "But it got rough. There's bleeding." The doctor's face remained neutral as she examined me. The diagnosis? Tears that required stitches. Not permanent damage, but significant. As she worked, I stared at the ceiling tiles, hot tears sliding into my hair, not from the physical pain, though that was intense, but from the realization that I destroyed everything with Nate for what? A hookup that ended in the ER. When I returned to the waiting room, Amber looked up with red eyes. "Nate's not coming," she said quietly. "What? Did you tell him what happened?" She nodded slowly. "Casey told him everything. She called him before I did." Casey, the friend who'd been giving Nate those concerned looks for months, who'd told me once that I should appreciate what I have, who was probably comforting him right now. What exactly did she tell him? My voice sounded strange, distant. "The truth, Willow." Amber's voice hardened slightly. "That you went to a private room with those guys willingly, that it was consensual until you got hurt." The betrayal stunned, though I wasn't sure who I felt betrayed by. Casey for telling Nate or myself for giving her something to tell. "He said he's done," Amber continued, not meeting my eyes. "He said not to go to the apartment, that he's packing his things and leaving." A strange hollow feeling expanded in my chest. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. Nate was supposed to forgive me, to understand that I'd made a mistake. He was supposed to be here holding my hand despite everything, proving that he loved me unconditionally. They discharged me with prescriptions and care instructions. Amber drove me to her place since I couldn't face going home yet. As we pulled up to her building, I checked my phone, hoping for something. Anything from Nate. Instead, I found I'd been blocked everywhere. 2 years erased with a button. I can't believe he's acting like this, I said as Amber helped me onto her couch, after everything I've done for him. Amber's expression shifted slightly, but she said nothing, just handed me water and medication. I spent the next day in a haze of pain and disbelief, checking my phone compulsively, though I knew he'd blocked me. I created a fake Instagram account to check his page, but found he deleted it entirely. It was like he was systematically erasing any way I could reach him. He's really being childish about this, I told Kenzie when she came by with soup. People make mistakes. It's not like I planned for this to happen. Kenzie exchanged a look with Amber that I pretended not to notice. Maybe give him some space, she suggested carefully. This is a lot to process. Process what? That I got hurt? Shouldn't he be worried about me? Willow? Amber started, then stopped, sighing. You cheated on him with 2 men after lying about where you were and what you were doing. Her bluntness shocked me. I was networking. Things just escalated. Things don't just escalate, Kenzie said quietly. You make choices. I turned away from them both, tears stinging my eyes. Even my friends were taking his side. Nobody understood how hard I'd been trying to climb the ladder, to make connections in an industry where who you know matters more than what you can do. Nobody understood how suffocating it felt being with someone with no ambition when you're drowning in potential. After 2 more days of silence from Nate, I decided to go back to our apartment. My apartment now, I suppose. Amber drove me, waiting in the car as I limped to the door, still sore but healing. The apartment felt wrong immediately, half empty. All Nate's things were gone. Not just clothes and essentials, but his books, his record collection, the vintage camera he'd been restoring. He'd even taken the stupid chip mug he refused to throw away because it was from our first date. On the kitchen counter was an envelope with my name. Inside, a short note. Lease is paid through the month. Your parents know where to reach me for anything else. Don't contact me. Cold, businesslike, as if our relationship had been nothing more than a rental agreement. I sank to the floor, finally letting myself cry properly, not just for what happened at the hotel or for the physical pain, but for the realization that Nate was truly gone, that I'd gambled our relationship for a night that left me injured and humiliated with nothing to show for it. No connections, no opportunities, just an NDA and prescriptions. My phone buzzed. A message from a number I didn't recognize. Heard what happened. Men can be such trash. Let me know if you need anything. Casey? The friend who'd told Nate everything, who'd helped him erase me from his life. And now she was reaching out with fake sympathy. I threw my phone across the room, satisfaction flaring briefly as it hit the wall. She probably thought she'd won, that she could have Nate now that I was out of the picture, as if he was some prize. She was welcome to him. His contentment with mediocrity, his anxiety about taking risks, his constant need for reassurance. Over the next week, I tried everything to contact Nate. I emailed, called from friends' phones, even went by his workplace only to learn he'd taken personal leave. His complete silence was more painful than anything that had happened physically. I'd expected anger, shouting, demands for explanations, something I could work with, manipulate, shape into eventual forgiveness. But this cold absence, I had no strategy for that. My parents called after getting a certified letter from Nate about retrieving items from their storage that I'd apparently borrowed without returning. Mom was confused, asking questions I couldn't answer truthfully. I created a sanitized version. We broke up. He's being petty about stuff. You know how men can be. Did something specific happen, honey? She pressed. This doesn't sound like Nate. That was the problem with Nate being so nice to everyone. Nobody believed he could just walk away. They assumed I must have done something truly terrible, which I hadn't. Not really. People cheat every day. Relationships survive it. He was the one choosing to throw away 2 years over one mistake. He's been pulling away for months, I lied. Probably found someone else and is using this as an excuse. The women at my office rallied around me when I returned. offering sympathetic noises and wine nights. I carefully crafted my story. Emotional neglect from Nate, a momentary weakness, a regrettable encounter that went wrong. Their righteous anger on my behalf felt validating. Yes, Nate was wrong for abandoning me when I needed him most. Yes, real love would have forgiven this. Yes, I'd probably had a lucky escape from someone so conditionally supportive. 2 weeks after everything, I received an envelope from Nate's lawyer. Not even a real lawyer, just his friend who passed the bar last year. Inside was a formal letter detailing the division of our shared possessions and bank accounts, with documentation showing he'd already removed his name from our lease and utilities. Everything coldly efficient, as if we were dissolving a business partnership rather than a relationship. The final paragraph stated simply, Mr. Henderson wishes to clearly communicate that the relationship is permanently terminated and requests no further contact. Any attempts to contact him will be documented for potential legal action if necessary. Legal action. As if I was some stalker he needed protection from. As if I would beg for someone who clearly thought so little of me that he could discard me without even a conversation. I decided then that I was better off without him. Someone who truly loved me would have at least heard me out, would have recognized that one mistake doesn't define a person, would have supported me through recovery instead of abandoning me at my lowest. It wasn't my fault he couldn't handle the reality of dating someone with ambition, someone who took risks instead of hiding in comfort zones. It wasn't my fault he created this fantasy version of me that couldn't survive contact with reality. Clearly, we were never meant to last. I deserved someone stronger, someone who understood the industry I was trying to break into, someone who wouldn't make me feel guilty for networking and building connections. If Nate couldn't handle who I really was, who I needed to be to succeed, then I was better off without him holding me back. If this confession kept you hooked, make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We share powerful true stories every day that explore the complex realities of life.